I just finished 6 videos that read and reacted to Paige Williams' article, Kyle Rittenhouse, American Vigilante. A lot of people got completely hoodwinked by the article, thinking that it offered a fair and balanced treatment of the Kenosha shootings. In the next series of videos, I'm going to explain how Paige Williams biases her article by strategic selection of expert testimony. In this video, I will focus on her treatment of the pro-Kyle side and how she ignores mention of the experts available to her that could have painted Kyle in a more positive light. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dredd to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dredd Show.
Here, we will focus on the pro-Kyle side. Now, there are a lot of people she could have called. Who did she call? Remember, this is supposed to be a debate. There's supposed to be two sides of the coin here. And so, does she bring in anybody that might provide testimony that might support Kyle? And the answer is no. We could scan down through the article all day long, and you're not going to find anything. Now, let me give you a perfect example of the tactic she does use. This paragraph talks about Kyle Rittenhouse's handling of the gun, which in my opinion was superb. He only fired when he had to. When he was offered the opportunity to shoot somebody that was not a threat to him, he distinctly did not, and he landed almost all of his shots on target. Okay, and a lot of people after the shooting commented on how well he did. But let's take a look here. This paragraph is all about that. The glorification extended weirdly to Rittenhouse's street instincts. Gun users praised his trigger discipline, noting that he'd fired only when attacked. Notice something. She doesn't bring in any witness, any testimony from anyone. She just calls them gun users. A sportsman, again, unnamed, in Washington state blogged that Rittenhouse had accomplished the feat of hitting several moving targets closing in from multiple angles, throwing things at you, kicking you in the head, and hitting you in the head. Another fan concocted a macabre Kyle drill at a shooting range. On YouTube, a survivalist praised Rittenhouse's mindset during urban warfare. Now, look how she is castigating these people. She doesn't name them, and she writes them off as fans, survivalists. And if that's not enough, she'll put the final kibosh on it. The worshipful tone intensified when Rittenhouse admires blah, blah, blah. And so you see how she treats those people who are actively supporting Kyle Rittenhouse. She doesn't name them. She doesn't bring anybody with any credibility. She found these people on Twitter and Facebook. Now, let's talk about Kyle's self-defense claims. That's towards the bottom of the article. She sort of leads into this whole thing about self-defense and the use of rifles here in this paragraph, where it starts with Faith overtly acknowledged the deaths. And then it ends with, she seemed unwilling to grasp that if a bunch of civilians hadn't been carrying rifles that night, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So now she's going to launch into a self-defense discussion. There are a lot of people on the right who are experts in the use of rifles and self-defense. She's not going to bring in any of them. Who is she going to talk about? Well, let's scroll on down. She mentions the Gifford Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, a rabid gun control group. She mentions Patty Coterer, a gun control advocate. She mentions Robin Thomas, who is the Giffords Law Center's executive director. And guess what? A rabid gun control advocate. John D. Moore. I don't have any problem with John D. Moore. His work is purely scholarly. However, she cherry-picked it for this article. And then finally, Noah Feldman, a gun control advocate. Not a single pro-gun person is ever asked for their opinions by Paige Williams. She doesn't seek out any opinions on the matter. Instead, she brings in gun control advocates to support her contention that Kyle Rittenhouse, while he may have legally been allowed to defend himself, really shouldn't have. This was all Kyle's fault in the end because he was carrying a rifle. Now, who could she have brought in? This person, Attorney Andrew F. Branca. He is probably the preeminent self-defense lawyer in the country. Probably nobody knows self-defense like Andrew Branca. He is a lawyer who specializes in self-defense. In fact, his law firm only takes up self-defense cases, and he's been at it for like 20, 30 years. He knows the legalities of self-defense like the back of his hand. Was he interviewed? No. Well, maybe he was, but whatever he said, she went ahead and put that into file 13. And yes, these authors will do that kind of thing. Just because you're being interviewed for an article doesn't mean that your statements are going to make it into print. Oh, and by the way, Andrew Branca has a deep interest in the Kyle Rittenhouse saga. He actually served as an expert witness in Kyle Rittenhouse's extradition hearing. So he has a lot to say about Kyle Rittenhouse. He would have contributed to her article if she had asked him, but she didn't. And you know why? Because he would have said things she didn't want to hear. Who else could she have asked? This dude, ASSAD Ayub, he is probably the preeminent expert in the use of handguns in self-defense, and he's been an expert on it for 40 years now. He is a household name among concealed carry people. And he has videos where he talks about Kyle Rittenhouse's use of the gun in self-defense. He would have gladly contributed to this article. She never asked him. Again, maybe she did, but whatever he said didn't make it into print. But her choices weren't limited to those two guys. For example, there are plenty of lawyers in Wisconsin that she could have called that could have provided real credible testimony towards her article. These are Wisconsin attorneys. They know Wisconsin's statutes on self-defense. For example, Nicholson, Getz, and Otis. They specialize in this area. Gamino Law Offices. This is the Eisenberg Law Office. Guess what? They have a lot to say on their webpage about self-defense in Wisconsin. What about the law offices of Christopher Sharella? He offers a webpage on Wisconsin self-defense laws. Why didn't she contact any of these people? And the answer is obvious. She didn't want to hear what they had to say. They would have came in and said, well, according to what we saw on video, that sure looked like self-defense to us. Nowhere in her article does she provide any kind of statement like that from anyone, even though it's a really common response to trained lawyers watching the video. These two guys know the Rittenhouse shootings really fundamentally well because they have been covering it from day one. Robert Barnes knows Wisconsin law. He's a licensed attorney in Wisconsin. He seems to know a lot about self-defense laws, although his practice is mostly centered on civil. Mike Rikita has a very popular web page where he has been covering the Kyle Rittenhouse shootings from essentially day one. Now, Robert Barnes would have happily contributed. Yeah, I know that he's one of Kyle Rittenhouse's attorneys, but he's Kyle Rittenhouse's civil attorney. He could have contributed to the article. Even if Robert Barnes could not contribute to the article, she could at least claim that she contacted him, declined our request because he has a professional relationship with the client. She could have put that in. She didn't try to contact anyone on the ProKyle side at all. Zero. This is how you bias an article. And again, all the ProKyle side were simply dismissed as survivalists, fans, gun users, and cast off as worshipful. Glorification. Propaganda 101. Next up, I will focus on her choice of Mike German. Like my video, subscribe to my channel.